Alright, diamonds in the rough. Good job on doing last week's homework exercise, which was to draw this specific couch from a bunch of different angles, and the main purpose of the exercise was to work on your guidelines. Basically, think about how to proportion your boxes so that you can recreate these proportions, as well as draw through your form so that you can see how everything exists in 3D space. The cool thing about that exercise is that the couch is a really simple object. It basically perfectly fits inside of a box. So depending on what perspective you draw the box in, it results in the couch being in that same perspective. Meaning you could also do like a really exaggerated 3-point perspective and see that you get a really exaggerated couch drawn in 3-point perspective. That's one of the main things I'm building up towards. I want us to be able to draw boxes from whatever angle we want in whatever perspective we want, and then we can use those boxes to draw objects in those really exaggerated perspectives. So I think one of the exercises we'll be doing in the future will be drawing boxes in these really exaggerated focal lengths and then using these boxes to draw objects. But for now, I want to stick to more normal perspectives, and instead what we're going to be doing is drawing two objects. So the exercise is going to be to draw a school desk and chair, because this is another object that you might end up having to draw pretty often. And both of these are also pretty boxy forms, so we can still apply box perspective to it pretty easily, and it's slightly more difficult than just drawing couches because it's two separate objects. Now the desk is basically just a rectangular box. In this specific reference image, the legs of the desk are slightly angled. I think this one is vertical, but this one is at a slight angle. Even though they are angled, that shouldn't be too difficult to do inside of a box. The vertical leg can just be drawn perfectly vertical, and for the other one, we know what the vertical line needs to look like, so we just need to draw a slightly angled line to give us that angled leg. But for the most part, it's just a box. And then the chair, of course, you could simplify the whole chair to a box as well, but I think it's a lot easier if we just simplify this bottom part to a box, and then for the backrest, we just draw a piece up following the same perspective as that of a box. Basically, we'd have to draw a box inside of our desk box, and then we draw the backrest. And to make sure that everything is in the right spot, we still have to draw through our forms just to make sure that everything is in the right spot, and we have to anchor our lines back to the outlines of the form, just like we had to do in the exercise from 2 weeks ago, just to make sure that we know exactly where everything exists in 3D space. It's not that complicated of a form, but there are a lot of overlapping parts, so the guidelines are going to be extremely messy. So the first thing I would recommend doing is drawing the box for the desk. I kind of want to do a high angle, so the horizon line is going to be up here. And then I'm going to place the box for the desk right here. Also think about how you want this box to be rotated, because right now it's going to be at this sort of rotation, but you could of course also do this rotation. You could do kind of a 1-point perspective. So the way this box is rotated determines how the desk is going to be rotated. Proportions for this box are also kind of difficult, especially because the reference I'm using doesn't exactly tell me how this desk is supposed to be proportioned, so I'm just kind of using my intuition to figure this stuff out. And I think this might be a bit too wide, but I'm still going to finish the drawing, and then once it's finished, we'll look at the proportions and see if it's too wide, and then for the next desk, I can make it a little bit less wide. Also, make sure that you draw through the form, because that way we can actually place the chair, because if I didn't draw through the form, it'd be kind of hard to know where the back of the chair needs to be. Then to draw the chair, I would suggest starting by drawing the bottom plane of it, because then you can see where the chair is in relation to the desk. The back legs kind of extend a little bit further back than the back legs of the desk, so we need to make sure that this back plane extends further past the back part of the desk box. Then in terms of height, it looks like the chair is about half the height of the actual desk, so we would mark half, which should be this tall. Well, it's a little bit higher than half, I think, so I'm going to make it that tall. And then we need to anchor this line back here. We can extend this line up, project this way, and then now we know how tall this part of the chair needs to be. So we can do the same thing here. Extend this backwards. And then once we have this, we just need to extend the back part up to a little bit over the desk, and then we have the guidelines of the chair. And I can also see that this is a bit too wide, so I think the overall desk was a little bit too wide. Now that we have the overall proportions decided, there's two things we can do. We could immediately start drawing the details just on top of these proportions, or we could draw more guidelines and actually make sure that everything is in the right spot. For this exercise, I would actually suggest doing both of these things. So maybe for one drawing, you would immediately go from these proportions to drawing the actual details. So you immediately draw the top part of the desk, and then from here, we draw this bottom part. Then we attach the legs to it. So you immediately start drawing the details, and then maybe make another drawing after that where you draw all of the guidelines in detail. So on the top plane of the box, I can mark how I want the top part of the desk to be proportioned, and then I can project this down. So basically that gives us this part of the desk. Then we have the legs. One of them is angled, and the other one is going straight down. Then we would do the same thing on the other side, but I think I have to actually draw through the form here. So I can draw the leg on the other side. Do the same thing here. That's going to intersect there. And then I guess there's this bottom part as well. So we would have one line going this way, that way, and then connects there. Now that we have the desk guidelines, I need to draw the guidelines for the actual chair, and those are, for the most part, already in place. We have the top portion, which is going to be, the wooden board up top there. Then we can see that the legs are made up of two parts. We have one part right here, and then attached behind that, there's a second part that makes up the back leg. And I'm pretty sure the way this looks from behind is that you have this inner part that attaches to the back of the chair right here, and then this outer part goes to the side of it and then all the way up here. So we have the inner leg, which is going to be right here, follows this down and then slightly angle. And then the outer leg goes this way. And then we have that backrest at the top here. And then now that the actual guidelines are in place, we need to clean this up. And again, I kind of recommend drawing all of these lines freehand and not using rulers for it. Mainly because you need to get better at drawing straight lines as well as controlling your lines, because that actually helps you draw guidelines a lot quicker as well. Of course, when you're making actual drawings, you can use rulers if you want, but for practice, I would recommend just freehanding everything. Then we can draw the legs. And for the legs, these are cylindrical objects. So we need to apply the cylinder stuff that we learned a couple homework lessons ago. Basically, the further away an ellipse is from the horizon line, the more of that ellipse we can see. So for example, if we say the horizon line is over here, an ellipse that's super close to it is going to be really flat, but then an ellipse that's further away is going to be a lot wider. And then of course, the further away it gets, the more circular it gets. And yeah, I think I can already see kind of the issue. is that it is too wide, but it's also not tall enough. I think if it was a bit taller, like... no, that actually might be a bit too tall. I think maybe to down here, it would have looked a bit better. So that's one thing to keep in mind for the next drawing that I'm going to make. Just make sure that the box is a bit wider initially. Actually, I need to draw the back leg as well. I think the back leg here is going to be overlapped by the chair, so we probably won't be able to see it, meaning I'll have to erase it, but for now I'll draw it just to make sure that everything is in the right spot. And then this one is going back this way. And we need to give this a little bit of thickness. And then I think we can also see this part of the back leg of the chair a little bit. The seat part of the chair is going to be completely overlapped, so we can't actually see it, but I'm still going to draw it just so that we can show that it's actually here. And then the leg is going to come down there. The other one is going to be on this side. And then here's the end result. Now, once you're finished, I would recommend looking at the drawing and trying to analyze where your mistakes are. In this case, I think the mistake lies here, and that's specifically, I think, because of the way the box is proportioned. For one, I think these lines are not converging properly, because if we follow these lines up, these two converge to a point that's somewhere around here. And then if we draw that back, this bottom line is not converging correctly. So if I want this line to converge correctly, it should be going that way, which means that this front plane is extremely wide. So if I wanted to fix this, I'd probably have to shorten the front plane a little bit, and maybe I'd have to make the box itself a bit taller. But this is going to be the exercise. Draw a desk and a chair. Make sure that you start with the box guidelines and then draw the actual chair and desk guidelines inside of the box, and then you can draw the actual desk and chair. And then once you're done, you can analyze the drawing and then try to find where the mistakes are. Usually the mistakes lie in the guidelines, so instead of looking at the finished drawing, make sure that you look at the guidelines. If you want to participate in the homework exercises, you can join our Discord server, which is linked in the description, and there's also a playlist on YouTube which contains all of the older homework videos, so you can watch those if you haven't seen them yet. And then I guess I'll catch you all next time.